good.
Does it now say it is charging at least?
It says it's charging.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, because I found one more.
I think I'm good.
Okay. Is the recorder on?
Yes, it is.
Have all the public members signed in if you wish to speak? In addition to Roger? Okay, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. We are starting a little late at 6:04. Dan, can you call the roll?
Peter Dwyer,
Here.
Cruz Cabezas,
Here.
Ivan Heredia, absent. John Brewer,
Here.
Kristen Finn,
Here.
John Miller,
Here.
Jim Chard.
Here. Anything in terms of the agenda that anybody has a problem with? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Can we get a motion?
I'd like to present a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Call the roll.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Cruz Cabezas,
Yes.
Ivan Heredia is absent. John Brewer,
Yes.
Kristen Finn,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. I don't believe we have any minutes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Just want to make sure.
Yep.
Okay, any swearing in of the public? Anybody who wishes to speak?
Please raise your right hand by the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, we separate out the quasi-public from any different item. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? It's not. All right. I guess we want to go next to the quasi. I don't have the agenda in front
It's
of me.
okay.
I'm struggling a little bit here.
Presentations are none, and quasi's next.
All right.
Yes.
Ah, thank you. Let me pull this up. So, before the presentations, do we want to do the ex parte, or is that?
I think you read the quasi rules and then the ex parte.
So do the quasi judicial rules first and then call the item specifically so that it's clear the ex partes for that item.
All right. So the hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be permitted to present their cases. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes for a maximum of 6 minutes if the person presents or represents an organization or a group of people who are present and agree not to speak. The City Commission Board, members, staff, and the applicant must be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. Further, the decision to approve or deny an application or an appeal may not legally be made upon personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be based on the numbers of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirements of law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. So, on the first item, item A, ad valorem tax exemption, 2024-60. Have there been any ex parte conversations?
No.
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 None.
No.
All right, let the presentation begin.
Okay, for the record, I'm Katharina Palavoda, Historic Preservation Planner. I'd like to enter actually it's not a COA, it's an ad valorem tax exemption, 2024-060 into the record. And the first presentation is going to be by the owner, Nancy McDonald.
So are you going to turn the slides?
I'll load it up and you should have that.
Oh, I have a clicker.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to give us your name?
Let me get, whoops.
Okay. Hello, my name is Nancy McDonald, and I'm here to present on my house, 531 North Swinton. Oops. Okay, so my house is a contributing property in the Del Ida Park Historic District. My construction project was completed in January 23, and it consisted of an addition to my home, plus a covered patio and an in-ground pool. My home was built in 1947, so it's 77 years old. The addition added an additional bedroom and a bathroom. My home was originally a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and it is now a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So here's the before picture of the north elevation, and ironically my home actually faces Northeast 6th Street instead of North Swinton, so it's kind of different. So this is the original house, and this is the original east elevation, which is my backyard. That's the after picture. The addition, you can see the palm tree trunk that is between the windows is approximately where the addition began, and it's all the way to the left. And you can see the covered patio there. And that is my new backyard with my pool and my hot tub and my covered patio. So that's it. Thank you for consideration. Does anybody have any questions?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy.
Can I sit down?
Please.
All right. So the request is for an ad valorem tax exemption for 531 North Swinton. So here we can see an aerial. It's at the intersection of North Swinton Avenue and Northeast 6th Street. The structure it's its own single-family residential, and it contains a contributing minimal traditional single-family residence that was constructed in 1947. So this project did come before the board on May 5th, 2021, and they did approve the certificate of appropriateness. That request that was for the construction of the one-story. It was 233 square foot addition with some other exterior alterations to the rear of the existing structure, which was the pool and the hot tub, which is the structure is considered a contributing residence within the Del Ida Park Historic District. Okay, so here we can see the front west elevation. This is the before, and then we have the after here. So there's some sort of minimal changes, landscaping, but for the most part, most of the structure, except in the rear, was the only area that was really affected on the request. Oh, okay. This is the before for the north side elevation. Here's the after. So minimal changes except towards the rear there where they have the addition. Okay, this is the existing before. And then the rear, so you can see the addition as well as the hardscape changes as well, and the pool and the hot tub. Okay, this is before side south. This is the after, so no real visible changes here. This is the before survey. And then there we can see how they have the covered patio and then the new pool. All right, here's some befores and afters, so you can see the differences in the change of elevations. This is the north side. It's the rear, so obviously the rear is completely, there's changes made to it with the stairs, and then the covered patio in the back. The windows that were existing remained. This is the front elevation, no changes. And then the proposed side interior where you can see the addition in the rear. And that concludes my presentation.
Any comments from the public? Any rebuttal from the applicant? No? No rebuttal from staff? All right. Who would like to start out tonight? Don't everybody speak at once.
I mean, I'll start. I think it's very appropriate. You know, everything was done to the rear. I think this is a great little house. See this thing? I've driven by here literally thousands of times. And I'm fully in support of it.
I
saw-
agree. I'm in support, and you obviously wouldn't know that the addition had been done if we didn't see these pictures. And like John said, I've driven by a million times, so it's great. Good job.
Absolutely, yeah, appreciate it. You know, one of those properties that makes me feel nostalgic for Delray Beach, and you did a great job with it, and it's a pleasure to drive by there a couple of times every day, so appreciate your work and everything you put into it.
I live in the district as well, so I'm very pleased to see that project. It looks great. You have a great pool now and covered area. And nice job. Thank you.
I agree. It's a great project. I think it's perfect for the historic community. I do have a question. I don't know if in my time on the board we've done something like this, the tax exemption. What is we have?
No, well,
Maybe
I don't
not.
think we
Not-
have
not
since
maybe
you
not
have.
since you've been
We don't
Yeah.
have many of them.
So what are there's a tax exemption that's created.
Why don't
Can
we
someone
let-
explain to me?
Staff address that. Or
So I think Michelle or staff may be more versed in this, but the basic principle is that you get a complete tax break just for the taxes that would apply for the city for the improved value. So it encourages you to rehabilitate and restore historic properties because you won't be taxed, at least by the city. You still have the county taxes, and there could be other special taxes that would still be assessed. But it's designed to encourage the restoration to be by not taxing the improved value.
And it's for a set period of time.
I believe it's
Not-
10 years.
Yeah,
Not permanent.
10 years.
So it's the ad valorem is for the extra square footage that you do. So it encourages additions for historic structures, but that ad valorem that gets assessed after the addition's complete with the CO, that part when it gets assessed gets frozen for 10 years, and it's for the city and the county taxes. So it's a pretty nice incentive.
And county, city, and
Yeah, so the application comes to us, but after the approval, this application actually goes to property appraiser, and then they'll handle the application from there.
And it always comes back to the board. It doesn't. You can't approve it administratively.
No.
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 So the program's mandated by the Florida state statutes, and when you have a certified local government, that we are a bona fide historic preservation program, everything that Katharina said. And the board does have to take final action. We do a site inspection to make sure that it was executed to the board's approval. You make action. It does forward on to the property appraiser, but right before property appraiser, it goes to Board of County Commissioners, and they do the same thing you're doing right now. So it goes through 2 checks to make sure that the requirements of our code and the Florida state statutes have been followed. But yes,
Also to the city, also to the city commission, doesn't it?
yes, so your recommendation goes to the commission, then it goes on to Board of County Commissioners. Once it's done and approved, it gets recorded, and then the appraiser goes out, reassesses the property, and decides what the exemption will be. 10 years.
It's a challenging process, as I'm sure the
Yeah.
applicant will agree.
We made it super easy so that the owners can do it themselves. While it does add an additional layer, that is true. The value of what they're getting is worth the investment of time. And it's $100 application fee, I think. So we try to make it as, as attractive as possible. Not everybody does it, which kind of is surprising to us. So.
And you are thinking of some changes, particularly with regard to the historic district of Atlantic Avenue, right? Of other kinds of incentives or
So
some
this-
creativity there.
This would apply to any district or historically designated property that's on the local register. So if Atlantic Avenue does get designated those properties would be able to utilize this program as well. And yes, there are additional incentives that are being reviewed. If some of you might remember, years ago, the task force asked the commission to approve all of their recommendations, which the commission did, and the task force wanted to see this program extended to 20 years. We don't have the authority to approve that because it's a Florida state statute. But some communities have asked the state and lobbyists to extend the period from 10 to 20 years. That has not had traction. But there are other tax incentive programs that during legislative session have been considered. They haven't progressed and made it through, but there is motion happening to increase the tax incentive program, either years or percentage, something.
I obviously support everything that everyone has said up here, and I also love to drive up and down Swinton and see those houses that are still there and have been restored. I do have some more questions about the process, if I just can take a minute. I'm looking at the exhibit on the invoices submitted in very detailed way of how we get to the total amount here. But just from a practice of how this works, there's a deposit that the applicant has to put down ahead of time, and that's based on an estimate?
No, I don't know what that is that you're looking at.
I think you're looking at the contractor's actual invoicing. So
that's his or
his
her deposit. Okay.
And it's Stewart and Shelby, it says at the top. Local builder, we all know.
We know them, yes.
So that's probably the backup.
It's just the backup, yeah.
That we provide guidance to the owner. They can provide as little or as much information to the property appraiser about the amount of money they spent on the project. Some homeowners just fill out the application with the amounts, and others give a detailed expense sheet, their contracts, things like that. But those things will itemize out if you had a 14-karat gold faucet, and the property appraiser is going to care about that. So the property appraiser takes the whole view, but they're really looking at the bottom line of what was spent on the project and what the values of the house are, the property. So it's backup that you're seeing.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve. I need the language, though. Oh, it's right there. Okay. I'd like to recommend approval to the City Commission of the Historic Property Ad Valorem Tax Exemption Application 2024-060 for improvements to the property at 531 North Swinton Avenue, Del Ida Park Historic District, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations. Second.
Call the roll.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Chris Cabezas,
Yes.
Ivan Heredia is absent, John Brewer,
Yes.
Kristen Finn,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to enter COA 2024-101 into the record. It's a certificate of appropriateness for 106 Southeast 7th Avenue within the Marina Historic District.
Ex parte?
Nope.
None.
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 Good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Conditor. I'm representing Marilyn and Michael Crocker at 106 Southeast Evan Avenue. It's in the Marina Historic District. We're requesting the modification of the exterior for replacing a window with a door and replacing the size of an existing window on the property. Marilyn and Michael purchased this house a few years ago and proceeded to do primarily an interior alteration, and a part of that process there were these two just items. We tried to minimize the impact on the exterior while we reconfigured the interior, and I think we did a pretty successful job of reducing it to these two minor items. What you see up on the screen now is vicinity map. So the front of the house faces Northeast 7th Street, and then on the south side of our property, this is a part of a larger kind of condominium. So there's a community pool area that is on the south elevation, and on the north elevation is the adjacent neighbor. When you're looking at the two elevations, on the south side, you can see the arrow pointed to what is two single hung windows side by side. The width of the existing opening is remaining the same. As a part of the alteration, the existing kitchen on the first floor was in the rear, and we're trying to make it more of an open floor plan, so we pushed the kitchen forward. So where that window is now being replaced is going to be the kitchen sink area, so we're just raising up the sill. The type of window that we're using is the exact same window manufacturer and type that was done and previously approved when they did an addition a few years ago. We had the original plan, so we're speccing the same color, aluminum, and window type. And on the north elevation, there was a window bay area, and we're replacing with a door. This house is a unique configuration where there's a second kitchen that was installed above the garage in the back. This is a large family where they have guests come down, so they wanted to kind of separate almost like a downstairs unit and an upstairs unit. So we're providing a independent access where that you would enter that door. Then there's a stairway that's existing that takes you up. So we're replacing that window with a door, and that door will match the adjacent doors that you see with the type, manufacturer, and size. And this is just a floor plan. You can see on the top floor plan of the first floor, the bubbled area, where we're adding that door and creating that kind of entry that goes to the back unit upstairs. And on that same plan, tucked in the corner, it's a little tight to see. You can see where the new kitchen area is going to be and where we're replacing those single hung windows. And really, that's the extent of the work that we're doing on the outside.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Michelle Hewitt, planner, and again, this is agenda item 8B for 106 Southeast 7th Avenue, COA 2024-101. So here we have an aerial of the subject property. In the yellow circle is the subject building of this request. Some background: the subject property consists of Unit 1 of Sloan Hammock Land Condominium and is located on the west side of Southeast 7th Avenue, approximately 75 feet south of Southeast 1st Street. The property, joined by unity of title and executed condominium documents, currently contains 4 structures consisting of 5 total units, 2 two-story structures, a 1-story structure, and a detached garage. The property is zoned multiple family residential, medium density, has maximum density of 5 dwelling units per acre, and is classified as contributing to the Marina Historic District. The structure involved with the subject request is a 1925 Mission Revival style structure that was constructed as a 1-story home. Subsequent renovations and additions have turned the structure into a 2-story home with a 1-story detached garage in the rear that was constructed in 1996. So here we have images of the existing subject structure. This is of the existing east or front elevation. There are no modifications proposed to this side of the structure. Here we have the existing side or north elevation. This is where the proposed door is to be replaced. Here we have the existing side or south elevation where the proposed window is to be replaced. This faces the inside of the structures, inside of the lot. So here we have the existing floor plan. The 2 highlighted areas are where the windows are proposed for modification. So on the south side of the structure, there is proposed window size modification, and then the north side of the structure is where the change from the window to the door is proposed. And that's shown here with, again, the door on the north and that window on the south. Here we have the proposed side or north elevation with the door here highlighted in red. And then we have the proposed side or south elevation here with that new window modification highlighted in red as well. Here we have highlighted areas that were used to analyze that are specific to this request from the Secretary of the Interior Standards. And here we have the highlighted sections that were applicable to this request from the Visual Compatibility Standards. Here is a staff report excerpt specifically in regards to the Secretary of Interior Standards. While the type of window and door proposed are appropriate for this style of structure, modifications to existing window openings and doors are typically not considered an appropriate approach to alterations of contributing structures. It's important to note that the proposed modifications are not going to affect the existing use, and that they are visible from the public right-of-way due to the configuration of the buildings on the site. Here we have an excerpt from our staff report in regards to the visual compatibility. All of the, with regard to the rhythm of solids and voids, along with existing openings, the pattern will maintain a similar appearance as the modifications are in the same locations as the existing openings. It is the proportion of openings, windows, and doors that will be affected by the modifications. However, again, as previously mentioned, the existing rhythm and patterns will remain as they're to be located in the same spots. All proposed colors and materials are to be appropriate for the structure style and to match. All glass is also to be clear, no tint, no low E, and non-reflective. Here are the findings that staff used and for the board to use as well. And that concludes my presentation.
Excellent. Any comments from the public? At least I remember to turn it off. Any comments from the public? Any rebuttal at all from the applicant?
No.
And none from the staff?
None from staff.
Okay, well, let's take it to the board. Anybody want to step forward on this?
I'll start again. I mean, I think it's very minor. I mean, it's appropriate. It will allow the structure to be better used. In that case, it will help provide for the longevity of the structure. So I'm all for it.
I'm in support as well. It's very minor, and I think it's done tastefully.
Looks appropriate. Very, very simple and straightforward. Thank you.
We don't have much to say tonight.
Nothing to be added. Yeah. I'm good.
I have to agree with my colleagues. Call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry. Make a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. Mr. Chair, I move approval of this Certificate of Appropriateness 2024-101 for the property located at 106 Southeast 7th Avenue, Marina Historic District, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Second.
Call the roll.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Chris Capezis,
Yes.
Ivan Heredia absent, John Brewer,
Yes.
Kristen Finn,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a
Excellent
great
job.
night. Thank you.
I think now we move on to one of our favorite topics.
Yes.
And that's awards.
We don't have to vote.
You do have to
You
vote.
do have to vote.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We have to deliberate.
Out of order.
So I will do a
Working this day.
presentation. Michelle Hoyland, Principal Planner, for the record. So we are about to embark on Historic Preservation Month, which is every May. This year, and it has been the ongoing theme with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, People Saving Places. We've taken it fairly seriously every year since 2020, I think. We brought the program back. I had a hiatus for a while. And so this year, we have one category with 3 properties. But this was in your memo and the background on what is Historic Preservation Month, that the program has been in place. Back in '73 it was a week, and it's been extended to a month. That occurred in 2005. So it's an opportunity to celebrate these successes for historic preservation and also honor the projects that need preservation throughout the country. Women, men, individuals, and their contributions. You'll remember last year that we recognized our partners as well as some of our properties. So the Delray Beach Preservation Trust, the Delray Beach Historical Society, and Spady Cultural Heritage Museum. We honored all 3 of those groups with a certificate and of appreciation for the hard work that they're doing to continue supporting preservation and cultural heritage in our community. This year we have the 1 category. The way we pull our categories together is we look at projects that the board approved and that have been CO'd. Certificate of occupancy has been issued. We have quite a bit in process, but we didn't have enough to create additional categories. So we have 3 properties this year. The first is located at 210 Northeast 5th Court within the Delida Park Historic District. And I'm going to go through each one individually, but I'll introduce the 3. The second is 105 Northeast 7th Street, also in Delida Park, and 125 North Dixie Boulevard, Delida Park. So first I'm going to talk about 210 Northeast 5th Court. This 0.21 acre property is a contributing structure, 1-story single-family residence. At the time, before the improvement, had a metal storage shed in the rear. It was constructed in 1917 in the frame vernacular style. While the 1926 Sanborn map shows a vacant lot here, the 1988 Historic Designation Report for Delida Park notes that the structure was moved to this location in 1941. City building records indicated it was remodeled in 1947. The original records also note OP on the front of the structure, indicating that there was once an open porch here, and you can see that on the left side of this photograph where those horizontal shaped windows are. That was where we believe the open porch was, and it was likely enclosed during a 1947 remodel. Inspection of the building, both interior and exterior, proves the prior existence of that porch. The kitchen was originally situated to the rear of the structure, which was not uncommon for structures like this. Before we had air conditioning, they would put the kitchen in the back of the house to keep the heat off of the living and bedroom areas. The project was approved in 2017. It included demolition of a 1947 addition in the rear, removal of the metal shed, construction of a 2-car semi-attached garage with a loft bedroom on the half-story above the garage, and a bathroom. The addition in the rear, and you'll note that it connected the back of the property, included a new kitchen, living room, master suite wing, or primary suite wing, we should be referring to it, and a concrete courtyard with a new pool. So here are the before pictures, and this is the after. When the board was reviewing this, while it may not quite appear this way in this photograph, the facade of the garage is slightly set back from the front facade of the main house. There is a gate between the 2 structures connecting them where the courtyard is beyond and the swimming pool, and then that addition with the new bedroom, kitchen, and living area beyond. So this is our first project that you'll deliberate on against the next 2. Here's another view. The second is located at 105 Northeast 7th Street. This residence was constructed in 1941 and is considered a contributing building within the locally designated Delida Park Historic District. The property contains about 0.27 acres. It's located on the north side of 7th Street between Swinton Avenue and Northeast 2nd Avenue. In 2021, the Historic Preservation Board approved a request for the construction of a new one-story, two-car garage addition to the west side of the existing contributing one-story structure and forward of the existing non-contributing two-story addition, which is photographed here. Also approved was a one-story, 143 square foot addition to the rear and north side of this non-contributing addition. Other exterior improvements included a trellis entryway to be constructed between the new garage and the existing one-story structure, brick paver driveway. So here is a before. You can see on the right is the original historic structure from mid-1940s. And then the addition that's over on the left, which is connected similar to what we refer as a hyphen. So it separates the structure from the original. And here's the after. The two-car garage with the variation of the front facade wall so that it's individual openings for the garage. Forward of that non-contributing addition, you can see the trellis over beyond the tree there. And you can't see the small 143 square foot addition on the north side. It's in the rear of the property. So that is our second project. Our third project is located on the north side of Dixie Boulevard between Swinton Avenue and Northeast 2nd Avenue, also within the locally designated Delida Park Historic District. The 0.2411 acre property contained a 1,600 square foot two-story contributing Mediterranean revival style structure. It was used as a single-family residence and constructed in 1928. Some of the background and history on this property is from oral histories we've heard from members of the community that it's believed this was a ground floor carriage house with a living quarters on the second floor as it was originally built, and may have served a family or families in the area where they would store a horse and buggy at the time for transportation purposes, and the caretaker living above. When the owner purchased this property, we had to go and do inspections and work very closely with them because it was literally lath holding up stucco. There was hardly any interior wood studs that were worth saving. We were surprised that the structure was actually not falling down. It had a dirt floor on the interior. It was in very rough shape. This is a photograph of the property after the current owners bought it. They did paint the property in the interim. And this is a view, and the next photograph is a zoom out so you can see the size and the addition that was approved. But this challenged the design with the way the building was situated so far back on the property. Years before, it was part of a half-acre size lot, and the western half was subdivided off. A new home was constructed on that property. So this was more of a narrow-sized lot, what was left, with the house in the far back, making an addition very challenging. We only have a handful of these properties around the city. The challenge is that the Secretary of the Interior standards and the local standards really mandate that additions shouldn't be forward of the front facade plane. So the architect, owner, and the board deliberated, worked together in the design to have the addition set off to the side so that the front of the structure could remain. And so part of the project, you'll see they opened up what they believed to be a second floor porch. This was, again, all approved by the board. And this is the final project. So that piece that's the original is set off in the corner here with the addition of new structure and a covered open area for the outdoor entertainment space off to the west side of the structure. This was approved in 2020 by the board. It included that outdoor patio, swimming pool, new square footage, decorative pavers. There was perimeter fencing and landscaping that went in, so if you were to drive by this, it's very hard to see from the road as that landscaping has grown in fairly quickly. The project also included a variance for setback purposes. So these are 3 projects. The next step is for the board to talk through and deliberate and pick one winner. The winner will be recognized at our next board meeting in May with a certificate. So I turn it to you.
Could I ask a couple questions before we get started? Why are there only 3?
We haven't had enough properties make it to CO for an award to be granted or considered. They're close.
What have we been doing all this time? And also, why only Del Ida? Aren't there other historic areas that...
We only had 3 that made it to CO. There are a lot of projects under construction. You can see this one was 2020, the one prior was 21, and the one before that was 2017. So once this board approves it and the building department moves the permit through, it's really on the owner at that point to progress the project along. So we can't force it along. But this is what we have.
Life sometimes gets in the way. I have an addition that we did, and we don't have we didn't collect our CO yet. Like, it's been done. It happens. It's like, and we're in Del Ida.
So you can't get the tax abatement yet?
Yeah. But once we apply
use
for
it.
it. Yeah.
Believe me, we searched, we went all the way back to 2016 when I came to the city and looked for projects that maybe we overlooked. And while we have some that are complete, we would have a commercial 1 project, and I didn't have something to put against that project. So our categories are typically residential contributing, residential non-contributing, commercial contributing, commercial non-contributing. So we'll create categories. If there were, like the Historical Society had the garden project that they did at the same year the Marina project happened. So we just didn't have enough to put them in a category where you could select. So we will, watch them for next year.
The one south of Swinton, the architect's building that's on the east side of Swinton between 1st and 2nd, that hasn't gotten to...
They got a CO.
Did it? Okay.
But I didn't have a second commercial project to put against that one. So that'll be held for next year.
That's a good one. Okay, who would like to start the discussion?
I'll start, because most of these are my neighbors. Specifically, the one at 105 Northeast 7th, that's right behind my house. So I can see that addition structure in the back, because that is right up against right behind us. This has transformed over the years a lot. The 210 Northeast 5th Court, the same. I drive by most of these all the time. I guess what we need to decide is what do we need to decide, Michelle? I forget. Do we decide is it just personal? Is this one time we can do personal?
Yeah. No, so there is not a criteria per se.
Okay.
But you could look back and see about execution, following the visual compatibility standards, the legitimacy of that property, contributing over the longevity of a historic district. At this point, it is choosing which one the board feels has been executed closest to plan. And
well, I think just based on, because I knew about the history of 125 North Dixie, based on that, being that, because we have lath in our house and plaster, stucco over, so I've seen walls being taken down. And it's true. They don't build them like they used to, so that's probably why that one was still standing, and the fact that it had dirt floors. They could easily have tried to argue, let's just tear this down, where it sits in the back, all of those things. I personally think they did I mean, obviously this is an amazing house when you look at it. I wasn't on the board when it was approved, but I mean, I think all of them in their own right should get, you know, kudos for saving and restoring. My personal opinion is that the 125 North Dixie went through the most, I feel like probably the most challenging for where it started and where it ended. And if you've ever seen that one in person, it's really a glorious house. But I think all of them are great.
You kind of read my mind on that. So I was thinking all of them should be celebrated because they all are, you know, preserving Delray's history and you know, keeping historic structures. I think 105 was probably the most modest changes of all. 210, you could argue that, you know, that really made it a livable space and brought it up to modern standards and therefore preserved that existing home, which is 1917. That's amazing. But as far as pure effort and, you know, it had to be just, you know, lots of different twists and turns to make 125 work and to save, which is a really unique structure. I would have to go with that one. It's my choice.
Let me run a question by you, though, John. When you do look at the Secretary of Interior Standards, they do say that as much as possible, keep the previous appearance. And this one, to me, although it's beautiful and obviously a great job, doesn't, other than maybe the arches a little bit, cause any reminiscence of what the building was before.
Yeah, it's definitely been modified. I would agree with that. And the placement on the property was so unique. I mean, I've driven by there a bunch of times. I didn't even know there was a structure back there.
It's
for
so far back.
I mean, it's way back. So it would have been nice if it was, I mean, exactly the way it was. But the fact it's still there, excuse me, still there, I think, you know, I could probably be swayed on 210 or 125, but I think just for raw effort, I think I'm going to go with 125. This is my vote.
It's always great to hear the backstories on these projects, and I think that sways our opinion. I feel like the first two, there wasn't really as big of a backstory as the third one, and I think we get connected to the story and the efforts. And I wonder if the other two projects had a backstory that we just don't know about, right? So
I mean, I know about Northeast 7th. I've lived behind it for 20 years, so I've seen, you know, 3 different owners. It's not as big of a change from when they bought it. Like she said, they added the garage and then they added a small structure in the back. So from the before and after of that modification there, it's great. I thought the house was great before, but I understand the
105.
105. But I understand the need for a garage because I have a garage. A lot of these houses in Delita Park, they don't have garages. A lot of them are small, narrow lots, and it's just driveway parking. So I understood the need for that. But like Michelle alluded to, I just feel like 125 North Dixie, it has such a bigger story because of where they started. Dirt floors, literally like falling in.
Yeah, I think those efforts should be applauded. I think they did a good job. They worked with the board to adjust the design to meet more of the standards. So I really like 125. I do like 105 too for more of the modest changes. I love that they kept the big ficus tree. It seems like the other properties had all new landscaping, and it just doesn't feel as historic when you have new vegetation, right? So that big tree, saving that and keeping that. So there's something about those images that are really striking to me with the big tree.
Save one of them anyway.
Save one. Yeah, I don't know what else. Yeah, you're right.
Well,
They
we had to allow that roof, the dark roof, because of all of the
staining
debris from that ficus. So I do know that was a modification because it's awful when that tree. It's a beautiful tree, but it's messy.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing about going back to 210, we agonize over roofs, and going to the standing seam metal roof on that one, I felt there could be some more differentiation between the existing and the new, because it does kind of look like it's great that it looks cohesive, but you want to see a little more differentiation there.
They doubled the lot size, or was that always there and they just built to the side?
I don't know.
It was like that. It was very overgrown on the east side of the property, which you really can't appreciate from these photos. So when this owner bought it, there was some clearing of the property to kind of imagine what was going to happen. It was also inside of this house, and not much had been done to the interior of this house. It was somewhat of a time capsule.
So, was it a city-owned property? I see the sign.
No.
No? It says...
Mm-mm.
No.
I don't know. Maybe it
That's
was. I don't know
interesting. It
why it
looks like
says
it
that
was.
for neighborhood services. Yeah, I don't know about that.
It would appear that it was. I mean,
Yeah.
based on that sign, just...
This is the one that was moved there?
Yes, but it was moved in the 40s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, now I want to go look because I don't
Yeah,
know for
I
sure.
mean,
I
that's curious.
didn't notice that when I looked at the presentation.
On 105, the building behind the garage,
You can't. Oh,
There's
that
no
that was
garage.
in existing.
that was in existence.
Mhm. That when they bought it.
When they bought it, but it was a non-contributing later addition, so it's not considered part of. If somebody came in and said we want to tear down this entire 2-story addition and the garage, because they're non-contributing, they wouldn't trigger all of the public notice requirements and the findings of the board, because those portions of the building haven't aged into contributing status yet, which is 50 years or older.
But the building was there, and
The house-
the 2 stories could
Yeah.
be seen from in front of the contributing building.
Yeah, well, you could see it off to the side there.
Behind the garage, yeah. What if you're... It doesn't really matter if it was already there.
Yeah.
So do we want to take a vote?
And I just want to
John
say
Brewer
too.
didn't say anything. If you...
No, I don't think Peter went either.
Oh, he read the sign, though.
I did read the
You
sign.
read the sign.
I mean, I could say a couple things.
John's just trying to buy a little time.
Yeah, I think it really comes down...
Formulating my opinion.
Yeah, it comes down to 210 or 125. 105 is great, but it doesn't really show the same kind of challenges that these other people went through. I mean, they came from pretty rough conditions to bring these back, and I'm partial to 125 because it's my neighbor. So
I think that's not in the
That's
Secretary
right.
of the Interior's guidelines.
yeah.
Yeah, but this is all personal.
This is a beauty contest.
This isn't.
No,
this
that's
isn't.
that's not what our cover letter said.
Well,
So-
you're acting as a board.
I would say that I do think the location on the agenda is probably not perfect because it falls under quasi-judicial. This is not a quasi-judicial proceeding. But I would just point out, as the chair just said, the cover letter does say that the board should determine whether the project best meets the intent of the LDR's preservation guidelines and interior standards. So although it is a personal preference on what's best, we're still looking at it under those criteria.
Yeah, I think that's the question, is the criteria. I mean, obviously, who spent the most money and who put the most work in, I think 125 takes that hands down. What I like about 105 is kind of what Chris pointed out, the modestness and the fact that I can look at the before and I can look at the after, and I see the structure. I see the old school porch. I know the other one's not contributing, but it has been restored. The old landscaping versus just, going with palm trees. So, I know maybe the expense wasn't comparable to some of the other projects, but as far as conformity or staying within the feel and the flavor of the historic, I'm between 105 and 210 actually. I mean, 210 is beautiful. I hear what John said about the roofing, and that looking at the after, it doesn't, if I drove by there, I might not necessarily say, oh, that's a historic house because of the roof and because of the way that's the symmetry of the two buildings. And the same thing I would say with 125. I mean, it's set back, you can't see it. With the palm trees and everything, it looks like a great hotel. And that's a compliment. I mean, it's someplace I would want to spend an afternoon for sure. When I look at 105, I think that's something that was historically Delray. So yeah, I'm kind of torn about I think what was just said was the integrity of what is historic for Delray Beach is what we're kind of supposed to be using as a criteria. Would love to hear everybody else's thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a very compelling argument. I like that. And if you look at it in that, who changed it the least, who did the most minimal changes to get to the desired result, 105 would win. If you definitely look at it that way. So yeah, I remember doing these in years past, and it always took forever. Go back and forth. Imagine if we had 6 categories.
125, even though it was such a challenge, it looks like a completely different house. Yeah. It doesn't really have any historic characteristics anymore. And 210, I can see a little bit of the roof differentiation. How the right side is the historic side,
Right.
So they kept that, and then the left side, it does have a different roof system. But I don't know if anyone would know that if you didn't have the history behind it. So
yeah, it's kind of covered up by the fact that it's all the metal seam, the raised metal seam.
So are we going to do a secret ballot here? How's this going to work?
Will you show us before and after of
John was
125
making
again?
a pretty strong case for 105.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to see 125 one more time. Like, I want to see that little part, see there? And then that little part.
They've continued the rhythm on the elevation, I think.
Yeah, the little tiled roof they had in the original, they did keep that tile style. I think maybe it's a little different.
It might be painted. Yeah.
They kept the barrel tile.
I do think 105 gets a little credit for saving that tree and not just putting standard non-native palms.
Right, and dealing with the roof, and they're not the funnest trees to have with their debris that they spin off.
And 125, this is the front of the house, right? It looks like it's the backyard, but it's actually the front.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because of the setback, right?
It's all the way to the back of the property.
Yeah.
They couldn't put the pool behind it.
No.
There is a pool back there.
Behind it? Or-
No, in front of it.
It's in front of it, isn't it?
Oh, you mean this
Behind.
property?
This property here.
Oh yeah, no, there's a pool
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I was talking about 120. I think
He's talking about 120. That one.
125.
The pool's in the front.
Right there.
Well, what I was going to say is I heard a little bit of consensus building from after John's compelling
Yeah. Well done, Counselor.
professional presentation. I could go with that one.
Well, you want to
Do we have to
call
vote
for a
today?
vote?
Yeah,
Yes.
we have to vote. They get
I would
awarded
like to
next
go on a
month.
tour of these homes, and see the insides and hear, like you said, hear the stories. They're all amazing.
So I do want to let you know that Charlene Farrington with the Spady Cultural and Heritage Museum does have, I believe still is doing, a home tour. I don't know which homes are on it, but there is a trolley that brings the group around, and you should definitely reach out and see what, they may have something on their website. If not, you can send her an email through the website. But she has been doing ongoing home tours. They're pretty great. It's a nice afternoon.
Well, let's vote.
Michelle, historically, how have you conducted the voting for these?
We just tell, right?
Someone will make a motion and
Okay.
make a nomination, and then the board will see if there's consensus and vote.
Well, I nominate 125 North Dixie Boulevard.
I'll second that.
torn, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
I'm very torn.
I mean, again, like you said, I feel like everybody gets a trophy, but only one gets number one. Everybody gets recognition.
We're gonna call for a vote.
So Michelle, would you do it like, have you done it in the past like we do for the board position? So if there's any second nominations and then Diane will do a roll call, or you do it one by one?
I mean, I don't know that we've had, I think we called a vote.
Okay.
I think we called a vote, and then if it didn't pass, there was another nomination.
Okay. So yes, at this time, I guess we do a roll call on the 125 address.
Right. So we have an even number, so a split vote would be non.
That's non-action, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Chris Cabezas,
No.
Ivan Heredia is absent, John Brewer,
No.
Kristen Finn,
Yes.
John Miller,
No. Sorry.
Jim
Okay.
Chard.
No.
Okay.
So that nomination failed, so floor is still open for additional nominations.
I'd like to nominate 105 Northeast 7th Street.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Call the vote?
Who made the second?
John
John.
Miller
Thank you.
for Northeast 7th Street.
Peter Dwyer,
No.
Chris Cabezas,
Yes.
Ivan Heredia is absent, John Brewer,
Yes.
Kristen Finn,
No.
John Miller,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes.
Okay.
I was
What
swayed.
a swing.
That was good.
That was good.
That just proves board discussions sometimes can.
Yeah.
100%.
Well done. I would like to thank and congratulate all of our nominees
Yes.
on really well executed projects as they went through the process. But I also, appreciate their commitment to their projects. But I also think that this is a learning lesson. It's oftentimes hard for us to envision what a project is going to look like in the built environment. Versus what we're seeing on paper or perspective drawings that sprinkle in pretty landscaping and stars in the sky, right? So I think it's something for the board to keep in consideration as they move forward. This is why we bring projects forward like the one right before this, which had some alterations occurring, cutting new openings, things like that. We, as staff, can approve things at a certain administrative level, but when it starts to be a question on us, we bring things to the board and we rely upon your expertise. Oftentimes you'll hear in the rules being read for quasi that you cannot make a decision on a COA or site plan based on whether you like a project, whether it's a good project. And this is where sometimes it's a struggle, where you have somebody who, an architect brings a project forward because an owner wants what they want, and that architect might be conflicted. And then you have others who stick really close to the requirements of the code. So I think we had some really wonderfully done projects, but I appreciate the analysis that was made about what is most appropriate in meeting the LDRs, the Secretary of the Interior standards. So it's a great opportunity. I think there's also, I wrote in the beginning, I keep talking about we're going to have a training, and I get so busy that we haven't had one. We do need to have a training. And if all of you have had an opportunity to look at the training resources that I've shared with you,
Did you send us the videos to watch? Because I got the big folder,
okay?
and I started digging into that, and I'm not really seeing videos, or there's stuff that, I guess, is there an order you want it? There's a few that we need to chew on.
Yeah, there are. I'll look and resend.
Okay, yeah, I
I don't know if
appreciate
I
that.
sent it while you were on the board or just before you got on, but I'll resend what
Yeah.
we've got, and it doesn't really matter the order.
Okay.
The information is there. It's us, the state of Florida. So the
Mhm.
state of Florida certifies us as a certified local government by the actions that we do through our boards and our administrative reviews, that we follow the requirements of the Secretary of the Interior, our own code. So I do think we need a refresher coming up, and to let you know about some of the things that have changed, particularly with properties in FEMA flood zone areas. And we are digesting new legislation and how that might affect our historic districts, so we are learning at the same time. But when we do come back in May for Historic Preservation Board awards, when we invite the owner to come and accept the award, we are working on, I hope it can happen, we're working on it, a virtual walking tour to show the board of one, possibly two areas in our historic districts, and kind of tell you the why for historic. And sometimes we get these owners who come along and, you know, want what they want, and they want to tear a building down. And what do? Well, how do we instill the importance? How do we inspire owners? And it's usually through telling the story of why this area is special. So we're hoping to have a virtual walking tour, and then you all can perhaps go out on your own and walk the areas that we introduced to you. So if the board has any suggestions on things they'd like to see us bring forward, recognition of any groups, please let me know. If you don't know right now and you think of something in the next week, email me.
Michelle, I'm also on the Delray Beach Preservation Trust. Is there any way we can coordinate between the two of us, or a price, or
we
Roger,
do.
who was here?
We do invite both the trust, the Historical Society, I say all, and the Spady Museum to participate and come to the meeting. Like I said, we honored them last year with a certificate of appreciation. I think the trust, what I usually do is report on what they're working on, and they do like a home of the month or home of the preservation month. So they have signs that they place at properties that are historic and ones that could qualify but aren't historic. I've also been in communication with the Historical Society, and they're working on something as well. So if there's something that we can bring forward and acknowledge from those groups, we will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could they be automatically invited each time, sort of like the way the DDA does it? They invite people to come to their meetings?
So the way that works is we could certainly send an invite every month, but the easiest way is we ask that people go onto the city website and sign up for the Constant Contact blast and pick what meetings they want to be notified about. So as soon as we publish an agenda, it goes to, I think 500 different people have signed up for HPB, and I believe Price Patton and Winnie, I think they're all on that and are getting notice. If they're not, they can sign up for it.
If they would.
Usually they do. Like I'm signed up for the Historical Society's emails, so I get all of the emails about upcoming events and the things that are goings on at their annual meeting, all of that.
I wanted to pick up a little bit on something Kristen said about, and combine it with what you said. Tonight I found a very exciting discussion back and forth and throwing ideas back and forth and watching John waver back and forth. And to me, it's sad that such a small part of our city has this kind of consideration. My own neighborhood, Osceola Park, which I believe was the first neighborhood platted, although there may be some debate on that. We have none of this, and day by day, you either see buildings deteriorating or converted to big white sugar cubes. And is there any mechanism that we can reach out to homeowners and say, wouldn't you like to have your house historically designated, or some sort of outreach program like that?
Well, do you have a neighborhood association where you all get together?
Quasi.
Do you meet? Or are you primarily communicating through email?
We primarily communicate through painting on the walls on the annual Art in the Alley.
Yeah, which is beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, we could certainly be involved with it, but there is a leadership in an organization that we could appeal to.
I think that you all would need to have the conversation. It has occurred in the past, and there was not support for historic.
They were vehemently opposed.
Yeah.
There was one person.
Yeah.
A little more than that, but
There was enough people that the people who wanted it didn't want to fight for it. So, you know, there's another neighborhood in the North Federal area where half of that neighborhood wanted to designate and the other half didn't. Well, the other half that didn't wanted to sell property. They did, and now there's all brand new homes being built. So, you know, we don't have it as a priority or identified as an area to study because we heard from the neighborhood that said we don't want this. So if you think that there's value, I think you should, you know, have a conversation with your neighbors about it. I definitely think it's worth studying, but I am afraid that it's gotten to the point where there might be such a loss of structures that there may not be a concentration in a area.
But I was suggesting something slightly different, that I know all of the advantages of declaring a district and that
Sure.
everybody benefits. But if just one property owner were to...
Yeah, they can designate.
They could designate.
100%, yeah.
But we could encourage, I would bet most of the property owners don't know that.
Oh, that's absolutely what we strive for. We love individual designations. The last property owner one that wasn't government, because government was CRA, was docks. But as we all know, that was, you know, part of the city's ask. But the last voluntary one was the Hardin Hart House. So Andrea and David Hardin's house on North Swinton came in for designation. So it was the last one we had voluntary.
Can houses get historic plaques if they're not historically designated, but they have history to them?
So the Delray Beach Preservation Trust manages the plaque program. I think it's still the Hardins who reach out to us on occasion when someone's interested in having a plaque, and we have to confirm the date of construction because that's what goes on the plaque. I don't know that there are parameters that you have to be historic. That's a question I would think for them.
Because that could be a stepping stone to reach out to these properties and say, you have some history. We would, you know, you could get a plaque. They get it. They might start liking the conversations that happen when people come over, and then it might make them want to get their home.
Well, sometimes it's strategic too. So like 1115 North Swinton, that was the Clintmore House or whatever you want to call it. So
1420.
He got it designated. Then he came in for a major rehaul and got a significant tax break on his ad valorem. So, hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
If that's the way the systems work and you're going to work within the system, great. The house is preserved, and you know, he got a break on his taxes. So
That's our big selling point. It is honestly our big selling point is the tax exemption program, particularly for properties that have room to expand, because the tax exemption is only going to apply if you have room for an addition. It's not applying for windows, roofing, siding. Those are maintenance items.
It works. I mean, firsthand experience. It's great.
Yes.
there's just not enough other carrots. If you have a historic structure and you, like Michelle said, you don't intend to expand, what kind of breaks can you get? Can you get grants on hurricane hardening? Can you get grants on, and you know, whatever else? There's a lot of repair needs that these homes need.
Insurance is a huge problem.
Insurance,
right now.
yeah.
So we've been looking into that. The National Trust for Historic Preservation has on their website a insurance company that they are partnered with to help historic property owners secure insurance for their property. We actually have it on our to-do list to create a page on our website. It's pretty easy to update our website and just get info out there on just that.
Yeah, I think that's going to continue to be a challenge.
Yeah. But the other thing too is we try to inspire people through a number of other means that are we call more soft incentives or soft benefits, which is pride of ownership, and that's kind of going along the route that you're talking about, it's oftentimes an eccentric person who is interested in historic at all, because they like the story. They want to have a piece of the history. They want to be involved in that. Storytelling is important, and, having integrity in the property. The other group of people that we're slowly finding are coming up economically are millennials and younger. And they are very interested in the benefits of environmental protection and conservation. And so we oftentimes tell the story of how the greenest building is the one that's already built, a quote by Carl Elefante. I have, presentations I do to realtors, Atlantic High School students, where we explain, we'll show a picture of a landfill. Keep the building out of the landfill. And there's quite a few people who are very interested in that and preserving and maintaining the man hours and the materials that went in. We have 2 pieces of wood in the back. I don't know if Katharina and Michelle can hear me, where we're looking at a homeowner who wants to replace their wood siding. And the old wood siding, I almost want you to hold it before you leave tonight, is so heavy compared to the new wood siding. It's light as a feather. But that's because we're talking old growth and new growth trees. You can't get that anymore unless it's reclaimed. So there are, yes, bring it out if you have it, and let the board, pass it around, let the board hold it.
Oh my gosh.
So there are a lot of things we do to try to inspire people to want to,
Dade County pine.
I was going to say that.
And this looks like mahogany or something. What is
So
it?
that is a softwood that's a fast growth that's been thermally treated to be hardened.
Mhm.
So we have this from an owner. It's wood, it's not plastic or byproduct.
You look at the rings.
Yeah,
from
that's-
Dade County. That's a slow
stands out.
growing tree,
There's the huge difference.
and that's why it's all gone.
Could I go back a little bit to the individual, and I'm going to use my own neighbor because I know it best. There are a lot of people who have been there 20, 30 years and moved in when it was the cheapest place to buy in Delray, and over the years have built a lot of quality and extensions to their houses. You probably know Gayleen McDermott.
Yeah, she was a board member once.
Was she?
Yeah.
Her house is magnificent. My guess is she did that just because she wanted to improve the house, but it looks fabulous. It is, I believe, historic by definition, at least. And there might be a way, instead of having this 90-day limit that you have to get the application in after the C of O, maybe that's something that could be released, that maybe it's 5 years.
So we do, on a case-by-case basis, increase the time frame. It's up to a board. We've had an owner come to us that got their CO but didn't file the tax exemption. I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
They didn't file the tax exemption timely. And I don't know that it's a 90-day limit. Like, we don't stick to a certain set. There's some flexibility built in there.
It was in our work today.
But
It said
somebody
90
who's
days.
done an improvement like Gail, and then maybe would later come in for designation, and then want the tax exemption on the additions that they did previously, the Florida statutes don't allow it.
But that was going to be my second point. We pay good money to a lobbyist to work on our behalf in Tallahassee. Why can't we add that to the list of things that the lobbyist is asking for? That would be, I would say, easier than asking for grants for EJS.
So there has been a movement, a whole bill that went through, not this most recent session, but the session prior, and there was no support, and it died, and it did not come back a second time. So while we have told our lobbyists that we're interested in this, we aren't the only city in the state. 67 counties and hundreds of municipalities. We can communicate that, but Delray Beach as one city in the entire state is not likely going to affect change by themselves.
The city will lose money, right?
Mm-hmm. But what do they gain in return?
So that is, obviously is the city losing money, or are they losing potential earnings, right? So they're not losing money that they haven't already got with tax exemptions. It's the projected. But it's in the spirit of preserving place that the program is supported. So, but yeah, I've had somebody who was 5 years out who asked if they could come through, and we asked the county, you know, what do you think at this point? And you know, there wasn't support to push that forward.
How long does it take for a property to become historic if they want to?
So if you own a house and you say I want to designate, once you submit, we put you on a board fairly quickly so that you can get here, and then we go through the ordinance procedure with the city commission. Planning and Zoning Board sees it because it's an LDR amendment. So I would say you probably have 2 to 3 months just in the public hearing and advertising.
But I don't think that was Chris's question.
No, it was.
I thought you wanted to know how long did a building have to last?
No.
before- Oh, I'm
If
sorry.
you wanted your house to become historic,
Okay.
let's say you
And
want
it
to do it.
qualified.
Let's say you want to do additions, or you're in the middle of additions and you want to get the process going to get a historic
Okay.
designation. Just
Yeah.
wanted to know how long. So 3 months or so.
I would say max, just because with the ordinance adoption procedure, we have 10-day ads, we have 500-foot mailers that have to be sent out, public notice. So part of it is how fast do you, as the applicant, want to move, because you're going to have to prepare a designation report or reach out to the Preservation Trust to ask if they have any way that can help. Price has written reports, Carolyn has written reports, Patton. And get the support. I have a couple in town who own a vacant lot. I'm not going to say their name or where it is, but they're consistently looking for a home that they can move there and save. So anytime something comes up that looks like it would fit, because I've looked at the property with them, you know, I'll let them know, hey, you should reach out. I've also told the Historical Society and the Preservation Trust that they should do that through e-blasts. When they see a real estate sign going up on, you know, I don't know, say the cigar bar over there was a historic property and it popped up for sale, and they, you know, word on the street said it's going to be demolished. All of our partners can work together and try to save and move a building and get it designated, and then do the addition process.
There is a home. Are we in board comments, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 things. There is a home, you know where the American Legion is on Federal Highway.
Mm-hmm.
The structure just to the north of it goes back at least to the 20s, might even be the teens. That's had a for sale sign on it forever.
We've seen potential applications,
Okay.
pre-apps we call them.
Yeah.
Anytime we as staff have a pre-app, so we meet, the way our procedure internally is we have staff meetings throughout the month. So we get to see the pre-apps that all the divisions are working on. So historic, current planning, and long range. Whenever we see something that's come up through a pre-app, if I think it has historic integrity, I immediately tell the planner,
Okay.
let us help you do the research, inform the owner that there's potential historic integrity if they wanted to designate and what the incentives are, and if not, maybe try to put them together with the groups in the community to see if the building can be moved and saved.
Okay. Because it's been painted recently, so hopefully somebody's going to
I've looked at it.
rehab it a little bit. I have a
Worried.
picture of that house about 1926.
There was another one down the way that I talked to an architect about. I think his wife's family owned it, and it was right on the cusp of being considered what
Yeah.
could be a contributor. And they were more so just checking to make sure it wasn't than checking to see if they could save it. We get a lot of that.
Yeah. So one other thing I wanted to add is April 25th. There is going to be a opening of a show that the Historical Society is putting on, which is going to be a history of Sam Ogren's designs, and that's going to be over at the 21 Drops building. What's it called? I forget what the building's
It's Rick
called.
Castor's building.
Yeah. Azure. Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's limited. So there's only, I think, 125, 150 people that can attend. So if anybody wants to attend, RSVPs are open now.
Just one night.
One night is the opening. It'll be up for about a month, maybe 2 months after that. But it's, it's private business. So you'd probably have to
Make an
arrangements
appointment.
to go in there and
Yeah.
see it. But
I
that night
emailed,
it's going to be the opening. And
I emailed Joyce today
yeah, Joyce Moose has been working on
about
that.
potential properties that could be highlighted.
Okay.
Yeah, I had, I think, 4 suggestions.
Yeah, we found one the other day. There was a service station that he designed way back, and it turns out now it's Muscle Beach Restaurant. There was a gas station there.
Super close, and I thought you were going to say what the one I looked at, which was Granger's, the old Granger's.
Oh yeah, that was Muscle, the old Muscle
Muscle
Beach.
Restaurant.
Or Muscle, yeah.
Yeah, which was
Oh, that was the Sam Ogren?
That's the Sam Ogren, yeah. 1947, I think. I have the building plans I sent her.
Okay.
And the house next door, I suspect, was an Ogren because it was a 26, I believe.
Both
but
of those are on the block.
one of the ones I sent her, it is, yeah. We've been
Both
seeing.
of those are going to be developed.
Yeah.
They're sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean the chopping block.
Oh, yeah.
But something I shared with her that I've been thinking about and I find very interesting. There's 2 things. Number 1, I can't tell the Historical Society what to do, but I think it would be very valuable for them to look into investing in or renting a large format flatbed scanner to get his plans scanned. Not only his, but we assume that there are additional collections that will be coming forward that I've heard of from other architects. The Delray Beach or the Palm Beach Preservation Trust has their 5 architects with their archive. Volk and Faccio, like they've got the archive. I think they need to be scanned. I thought that 6 years ago. They are, I know, getting worse. I don't think putting them inside a plastic sleeve is going to preserve the plan. I think they have to be scanned.
I don't disagree with you.
And if it's a rental, say the project only takes 6 months, you don't have to keep renting it. So why buy it? You could maybe rent it, or a year, and then the technology changes and you need it again. You can rent a newer version, and maybe even share it with the Spady Museum, or the city if we have plans that we need that are old. This is only for old. But number 2 is the other property I shared with Joyce is 104 Seabreeze, which has been demolished, and it was a Sam Ogren Senior. The style of that building was in the late years of Ogren's work in the 50s, and we know that Junior was coming up around that time. We have reached a time period where Junior's work is now potential contributors, and I think the conversation needs to be expanded on the importance of Junior. It's such an unusual history for a community to have a father and son architect working in the community over a span of at least 80 years. But I also think 104 Seabreeze is interesting because the style of that home is very similar to, and I believe potentially inspired Senior inspired Junior in his work that he went on to do. And there's a lot of examples of Junior's work in our town, but also in the village of Gulf that looked like 104 Seabreeze. So I think that would be a really neat piece of the April 25th is to maybe start the conversation on exploring the connection between father and son and what they have had their fingerprints on our city. So I put all that in an email to Joyce. I can forward it to you if you want to see it.
Yeah, sure. Send it over.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
And of course, I identified what I think we all believe is Sam Ogren's first design, or was his personal home on Swinton, right at 7.
Personal home, yeah.
I've tried to get in touch with those owners. They look to be taking very good care of the property, and I know they've done some type of remodel, which I believe was all interior.
Yeah, they redid some of the stucco on the outside, but most of the detail's still there.
It looks good still, and I would love to see that designated, particularly because it's such a big lot. But it's hard when the government comes along with the ask of, hey, designate. We're not always
Well, maybe
heard.
they need an invite for the 25th.
Maybe the house is redocumented. I know it was documented previously, but maybe the documentation needs to be updated.
I have a question for you outside of Delray, so if you wouldn't mind after the meeting, because
Sure.
I think we need to wrap
I have
up.
one too. Outside of Delray, didn't the governor just sign something about historic properties that are unsafe can be demolished?
So this is what we're digesting that I mentioned earlier. This is primarily related to properties that are within a FEMA flood zone
that's right.
or within commercial properties within half a mile of. And so we have to still develop the map and look at, we've had 2 webinars we participated in, the Florida League of Cities and Thousand Friends of Florida. So we continue to keep our staff up to date on the legislation as it's changing. I asked a question in one of those, which was, why is national the only qualification in that bill? Why is local not included? And that was by design, to only include nationally listed properties in the exception, not local. And this is a bigger issue that's really coming out of Miami than it is a broad sweep across the state. So we have to digest the ordinance update that I don't know if we even have to make an update to our ordinance. There's a lot to look at.
Okay.
I'm hopeful I don't have someone running through the door saying, I want to use this. It's going to be hard.
Well, it excludes single family. So, and there's a limited amount of commercial within the flood area in Delray that isn't within the district. But Marina, you got Marina.
I'm not going to say too much until
I know.
I get to look at it.
Okay. I'll ask my other question after the meeting. We'll get
Okay.
together.
Anybody else?
I do want to bring up the subject of non-man-made historic preservation. I know we mentioned that frequently, but now that the election's over, maybe we can address it again.
Can you refresh me at
Yeah.
non-man-made?
3 years ago, we had a presentation here about the whole idea that when we talk about historic preservation now, it's only man-made buildings, not the landscape, not the terrain.
Oh, this is landscape. Okay.
Well, I don't like to call it landscape because then immediately people think about Calusa and palm trees. But it's
I think we call it landscape and the natural environment. Are you still good with that, or?
I don't like the word landscape.
Yeah, Chris.
It's
So you want to go with non-man-made?
yeah, the natural environment, not
I mean, it could be
man-made.
rock outcroppings, right? It could be mounds, some earth mounds.
But with
It is
trees,
within the
someone's
landscape too. But I get what you're
planting.
saying. When we get this as a landscape architect, people think I'm a landscaper, and they just think of
Yeah.
plants. And so landscape has a connotation sometimes that you don't think of the broader scope. You just
So
think,
natural
oh, it's
environment?
some shrubs.
maybe we could call it natural environment, because you still have trees that are planted by man that aren't just occurring naturally. But your point is you want to bring this back to discussion. So
Right.
do you want to pick a board meeting where we put this on for discussion? Do you want to try for May?
If there's
And
time.
just so you know, do you know what we're talking about?
Picking it up.
William?
But the one thing I was just going to add is that there should be a consensus of the board for whatever date you'd like this to come back or be presented. So just as the discussion develops, just keep in mind the consensus of the board to bring the item forward for discussion.
Okay, I mean, we have the PowerPoint, we have the letter that staff prepared, we have the letter that the city manager prepared.
This was just, if I may update William, the board had deliberated 3 years ago now?
We had a workshop.
Right, but was it 3 years or 2?
Yeah, 3 years ago.
About, at the time, it was called Landscape and the Natural Environment. And they put a memorandum together with their consensus of wants. And we forwarded that through Anthea to the city manager, to the city commission, where the board was asking for certain things to be done. And nothing happened. So at a recent meeting, I think right before you joined us, they had a discussion, the board did, about renewing the memo, especially with a new commission coming on board. So this is what the discussion would be about is potentially renewing the memo, which they would all need to discuss.
And it was all based in Secretary of Interior, Comprehensive Plan, and the LDRs. It was not something de novo from all of that.
Yeah. So I think you just have to have consensus that you want to bring this forward to discuss in what meeting.
How busy is May at this point?
Michelle and Katharina, can you join us and tell me how busy May is for his HPB?
Would this mean we can review landscape now on projects, or is this a separate?
That would have to be part of your discussion,
Right.
and there are things I would need to share with you that I don't want to get into that level of detail right now, but you could talk about it, yes.
Okay.
The board does see landscape. The board doesn't review residential, single-family residential landscape.
Not looking good there, Jim.
I've waited 3 years. They can wait a minute.
While they're having that discussion, I'll just remind you that those if they mention any specific applications, those are coming before you. So that would be a disclosure of ex parte if you have any type of discussion on those items. So probably best if there are any particulars listed, best just not to discuss them until they're presented.
What's with it? Oh. So it potentially is a big meeting. We have 2 definites, possibly 3 definites, and then 3 others that, if they can fit. So it's a mix between medium size and minor.
Oh, okay.
So if it ends up only being like, maybe you could give me some leeway to make the decision that I put it on.
If it's a meeting like tonight, we can discuss it.
That I put it on for May if it looks like we don't have a 4-hour meeting ahead of us, or I could put it on and you could postpone it.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was about to say. There's no special notice required, and we could put the item under board discussion at the end of the agenda, and if the nights run long, the board can just elect to postpone it to the next meeting. And technically, you wouldn't even need it to be that specific, but you could just say postpone to the next meeting and address it.
Also, it was drafted to be brief and to the point, so it wouldn't need to go on for more than 15 minutes, I wouldn't think.
I'm fine with that.
We have a way of
Let's do that.
You do have a way of
rambling
working
on, so.
working a discussion fairly
Yeah.
long, but
All right.
I have a gavel and I know how to use it.
and we also have awards next month too. So we'll put it on, and if we can work it in, otherwise it could be
Okay.
June.
So just there's a board consensus to add it to board discussion in the next agenda.
All heads
Yes.
nodding yes. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I saw at least 4 head nods. So.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess the very last quick thing, thinking about the awards, you said if we thought of something, religious institutions in historic districts, maybe that's a.
We don't have a
something
lot.
to think. Not a lot. How many?
We have some, but there's not changes happening. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. If
Yeah.
Does there have to be changes? For
I'd say
an award?
that our highest concentration of religious institutions in historic districts are primarily in the Black community, with the West Settlers Historic District and also St. Matthew's Church down on Southwest 4th Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
But they have
St. Paul's and Trinity, they all have.
St. Paul's, Trinity, the now Chapel 4, which used to be Christ Scientist. So there haven't been changes. We've heard from people at a couple of the institutions that they're thinking of bringing something forward.
How about for maintenance of structure? Doesn't need to have change, but they've just maintained it beautifully.
So that is maybe a category we could look at for next year. But I think that is partly what the Preservation Trust is doing is their award program is honoring people who are doing just that.
Yeah, I'd like to, I don't know if can I recommend people go to the website and sign up for the emails, and then, we do have someone doing social media now, so getting the word out there, Instagram. And yeah, I know we've started to discuss an outreach type thing where we can get together with historic and the city maybe, and 'cause there seems to be a lot of interest. A lot of the people that have lived here and are moving here want to know more about the history, and it really is rich. It's incredible,
Good suggestions.
Yes.
Thank you for them.
That's it for me.
Okay.
Adjourned?
Yes.
All right.
Sweet.